It is Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. And Attorney Thomas DeVore got that victory in court on Friday. We didn't see it come through until about 4:30, 4:45, but ultimately it was the Effingham County judge declaring that the state of Illinois cannot enforce its gun ban against 866 clients of DeVore's, including several gun stores. So those gun stores and those plaintiffs can continue voluntary sale of certain semi-automatic weapons and magazines. Well, what about another possible lawsuit from DeVore? Tom, you've been over the weekend telling people they can register to get signed up for a second case, and you alluded yesterday that you are going to file a second case. Tell us what you got going on, and what's ultimately is your reaction to the judge on Friday saying that, the states refrained from enforcing this law.
As far as the second matter goes, Greg, we'll have that available for you really soon. I'm finishing things up right now, so I don't want to say too much about it other than we're about done. As far as the judge's order, I mean, for those that read it, I'm pleased that the judge finally said, Greg, in a court order, what everyone, except especially yourself, because you stay very involved in politics, knows is going on in Springfield, which is that there's been a complete abandonment by the supermajority who could procedurally, in an appropriate way, pass whatever they wanted. They've otherwise still abandoned any sense of procedural appropriateness as it relates to how laws are supposed to be passed. And the judge just couldn't stand for it anymore, and he said that it needs to come to an end and that ultimately, hopefully, the Supreme Court needs to address this because they're not doing anything the way that they're supposed to do it. They're this gut and replace game that they play, and they do it in the midnight hours when everybody's asleep and the media such as you is asleep. This one they did on a Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock. It's just ridiculous, and it needs to end.
Well, I'll tell you, it's not always that we're asleep. I've been at the State House at 3 or 4 in the morning when they've gone that late before. So, but the vast majority of those out in the public that are paying the bills for all of this, they are indeed not paying as much close attention. And we see a lot of this pressure build at the tail end of either regular spring session or veto session or lame duck session, as we saw with the most recent gun ban. But Tom, moving forward here, talk a bit about the coordination of now we've got possibly a second case coming from you to be filed. We've got that Crawford County case. We've got the federal court case from the State Rifle Association. I am told that we could expect a second federal case to be filed by a different group against the gun ban. All of these taking different approaches. How are we going to coordinate this, and what's the ultimate goal, do you think?
Well, a couple of things. One, I've seen the one out of Crawford County. And there are a couple of interesting arguments there, but that's a state court case that got filed under federal issues. I mean, the gentleman that filed that case didn't raise any state law issues; he raised federal issues. So I don't know if the defendants in that case will drag that into the federal court or not. It's yet to be seen. State Rifle Association cases, I understand it. I think it's a little thin, but the one that's coming from the other federal guys that are working on it right now, I think that's going to be very thorough. And I'm familiar with it. I understand it. So once we get the second state court case going, we're also going to bring the federal case as well. And all of these are going in the same direction, Greg. There's not like one of them's causing problems for the other. When you have an issue that you're trying to take on, as long as the people that are doing it, even though they're not working in the same group, if they're headed in the same direction, that can even be a benefit sometimes to try to accomplish what everyone's wanting to accomplish. So I don't see any issues with that yet, but I'm really looking forward to the second federal case that I know is coming. I know who's bringing it. I've talked to them, and I think they're going to do a pretty thorough job, and it's going to look really similar to what we do too. But the federal issues of the Second Amendment, and there's even an equal protection argument in the federal court, similar to the one we brought in the state court. I don't see how this law survives that, even outside of argument in our case, when you read it, Greg, he really pinned that in going, this doesn't make any sense. And you don't have any information to support how you're carving out these people based on training. Because if training is the issue you're trying to address, is that people that have these weapons aren't adequately trained, in your opinion, then you just have a training requirement, and you don't just take their right away for the rest of their lives to go buy one. So the judge caught on to that just like we did. It doesn't make any sense.
Tom DeVore with us here on Springfield's Morning News. Just a few more questions here, and in particular about the case that was decided on Friday. You've got the governor and the Senate president and the House Speaker saying that they're going to appeal this. And the governor saying last week before the ruling came out for the temporary restraining order, he said that, hey, it's going to take some time to get rulings, the right rulings, he said. And he equated it to all the COVID-19 challenges there were, seeming to say and seeming to kind of hint at that he was victorious in those COVID-19 challenges by holding it out in the courts. Tom, you laugh, but what's your reaction to that?
J.B. Pritzker, I don't have many good things to say about him, but one of the things I'll say is he's really good at BS, right? Because J.B. preys on people that just catch his little sound bites and don't pay enough attention to really understand what's going on. First of all, President Harmon and Speaker Welch aren't going to appeal anything because they're still running around hiding from this case. So they're not appealing anything. As far as the other, what else can the governor say? He has to stand there and pretend like, he's in control of everything and it's all good, just like he did when he lost. He lost all the way to the Supreme Court on his COVID fight, trying to argue that he had the power to issue executive orders on those mandates. He lost that argument in front of the Court of Appeals and the Second Appellate District, or the Supreme Court and the Fourth Appellate District. But he can't say those things because he relies upon too many people in the state just catching what he says when he's on his bully pulpit, and they listen to what he says. But 99% of what comes out of that guy's mouth is procedurally and substantively incorrect.
And then you also yesterday, when you were talking about collecting new plaintiffs for a second lawsuit against the gun ban, you were seemingly really critical of the opponent you went up against, incumbent Democratic Attorney General Kwame Raoul. You said that people are paying you to defend against their rights, and that's something that Raoul should be doing. Kind of crystallize that for us.
Exactly. I mean, the Attorney General takes an oath to defend the people that he is representing, which is the people of the state of Illinois. He took an oath to defend them, but he's not defending them. It's just like, Greg, when we did the mandate stuff. Kwame Raoul, during the campaign, admitted on camera that it was a fair question of whether or not the governor's actions were lawful or not. But he chose to defend the governor. Here we have legislation that, again, read Judge Morrison's opinion. Don't take Tom DeVore's opinion for it, who raises clear, significant constitutional issues, but Kwame Raoul defending the legislature and the governor every step of the way instead of defending the people. And I hate to say it, and I'm being as respectful as I can, he does that because his campaigning and his political success depends upon pandering to the Democrats and to Governor Pritzker. Governor Pritzker was the only one that gave him any significant campaign contributions. And so he's fighting for them and abandoning the people of the state of Illinois, which means they have to go hire private lawyers and rely on other people to defend their constitutional rights because he won't do it. It's 100% truth.
And then finally here, and I appreciate you jumping on here last minute as we get ready to wrap the show up, Tom, but just reiterates what happened on Friday, what the judge did, who that impacts, and how those individuals can now still go out and take part in that voluntary exchange of firearms and magazines for money.
Yeah, I mean, we argued that hearing for 2 hours on Wednesday, and the arguments made by the state weren't convincing. There's a transcript out there. People should read it. And then on Friday, the judge issued a ruling, and his ruling was unequivocal of his opinion. And he said that the governor and the attorney general, for his participation, and the legislature violated the Illinois Constitution on 4 separate occasions on the way this bill was passed and what it tries to accomplish. So in the interim right now, there's 866 plaintiffs in that case. 5 of them are federal firearms dealers who are not bound by this law. They're free to purchase, they're free to trade, they're free to transfer, they're free to do what they were doing before this law was passed until some other court might say otherwise or until we get this case to come to an end.
We'll be watching that all closely. Tom DeVore, greatly appreciate you taking the time with us here with Springfield's Morning News, and we'll connect again in the near future, I'm sure.
Thank you, Greg. Have a good day.
You too. It is Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY. Springfield's News and Talk will wrap things up next.
It's time to apply at Culver's West.